Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, or team up against a guest and battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 1. Hello, podsters. This episode, we are not having a look at cinemas because there's a lot of CGI craziness going on. So we are going back to one of our legend episodes, our third one this year. And we are talking about the legendary John Carpenter and having a look at his films. And of course, we have guests again, which is very exciting, from the Comfort Films podcast. John and Georgia, how are you guys? It's so lovely to have you back on.
Yeah. We're great, and we're really happy to be back. We always have a great time talking to you guys, whether it's coming to see you or you coming to see us. So we love it.
Yeah, we've missed you a lot.
It's good. I feel like we're just shitting around like in a break room at work. You know what I mean? That's the vibe I get of this. Like I'm waiting for someone to say, "You guys,
this is not work."
Yeah. You guys, get over there.
That's a long break. We would definitely get in trouble for that. 2-hour break.
I would try to make it happen, though. I would try. I would.
Yeah. And of course, I'm joined by the Mr. Encyclopedia Man, Boaz Dix. And don't worry, people, we have made sure he's done the blood test. He's all good to go. Not a simulation. You all good?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Yeah, just watch out for your screens, people. Guys, tell us about your podcast. We had the honor of being on your podcast talking about Predator. But yeah, give us a little rundown of what your podcast is about and where can we find you?
Sure. We are called Comfort Films Podcast. You can see us on our website, which is comfortfilmspodcast.com. We're also on pretty much any other podcast platform. Most people listen to us on Apple or Spotify. And what we like to do is talk about movies that mean comfort to us and movies that we love to revisit over and over. Sometimes that means something traditional, like a family film or Christmas movie or a rom-com. Sometimes it means 5 weeks of crime movies, like it has in the last month. We just posted our 72nd episode yesterday,
Nice.
Which is The Godfather, and it is actually was the anniversary, 51st anniversary of The Godfather's release, U.S. release yesterday. So that was a really fun episode. We love doing. Yeah. And we did actually a John Carpenter month last year. So in October, we kind of go off the rails and do horror month. So we were really excited to talk about John Carpenter again, because we don't know if we can possibly squeeze another John Carpenter episode in on our show. But we're happy to come talk to you guys about him because we think he's a fabulous filmmaker.
He's great.
All right.
Yes, thank you. Wow, I was holding that so long.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay. No, you're good.
I'll shut up quicker.
You were great.
He's infected. Get away from him.
Yeah. All right. If only my head could open up. There's like a dog in there.
No.
You know?
Or a flower. Nice little flower.
That would be a great party trick, you know. Look what I can do.
I would love to turn into Wilford Brimley.
You guys' podcast would be the most popular thing on the planet at that point.
Yeah.
If it's Wilford Brimley without a shirt, I mean, I think it's such a wonderful part
That's
of the
like
thing.
right on the same level.
It is. That's
Yeah.
when we think of our podcast, I think of Wilford Brimley without a shirt. That's just me. I don't know.
I don't know.
You can take a look. We do a lot of weird stuff on Instagram. You can take a look at us there.
I'm sure you look just as good without a shirt, man.
Oh, I look good, but not as good as Wilford.
Okay.
You know, he's got the oats.
So you guys picked John Carpenter, the legendary horror director. I mean, what made you pick him instead of the other choices that we had?
Well, he just has such a specific style. You can kind of see him working his way around a similar story throughout a lot of different films. And especially the two that we picked today actually are pretty complementary in that way. He deals with a small group of people in an isolated situation in a lot of different movies. And, there's also this like paranoia aspect and these different themes that he just keeps revisiting in new and interesting ways. And we also love a low budget film. A lot of times we'd love to see somebody really doing their best without a lot of resources. And I just think Carpenter does that just about better than anybody. He's still able to bring out his themes and his style, even though he doesn't have, tons of CGI and tons of money, to work with.
Well, what he does have is he has like a dedicated team. And for us with Assault on Precinct 13, I mean, bringing into Carpenter, it's the teamwork that really shines through in his films. When that is happening, whatever the budget may be, you can always feel it. You can feel that this is a community. This is like a village that made these movies.
Yeah, and they also almost have like a DIY kind of a sensibility.
Yeah, we love that.
And, we worked on independent film ourselves and things like that. So it's kind of like seeing somebody like us that actually made good. So we love that.
That's a good point. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, we've made a few films ourselves, and I'm always trying to think of like, okay, how can we make this work with the very, very limited resources that we've got? So,
no resources.
Practically, a lot of location work and trying to get Bowers to do crazy stuff.
Put crazy shit on my face. So.
Yeah.
You guys should put this shit up. We want to see it. We heard, let's see it. Put it up.
Yeah,
we should. Yeah,
it's on YouTube.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
Please don't laugh. But yeah, I think John Carpenter still has like a great presence in cinema now. I know he doesn't make films now, but I remember this quote from Jordan Peele recently while he was promoting his film Nope. Someone asked him, are you like one of the great horror directors now? Are you becoming one? And he's like, well, no. Have you seen John Carpenter's work? He was like, no, don't put me in that bracket yet. No way. John Carpenter is still the man. So I really liked that comment. I was like, yeah. Just so many great films from Carpenter. And as you said, there is some kind of like little political angles that he goes with in his isolation style movies. And I always we picked Predator for your podcast, and that's a very similar thing. And kind of the opening of both those films are practically the same. I saw your reel that has both openings. So it was kind of cool to pick that film for our choice. But what is your choice, guys? Comfort films.
Hey, I'm James Lovino, and I'm here to tell you about Alternate Sides, a movie podcast with a twist. I've worked in the film business for 2 decades, but I haven't actually seen that many movies, and this has been driving my frequent collaborator, Sam, a self-confessed film snob, crazy. So every week, while he's stuck in his car trying to avoid getting a parking ticket, thanks to New York City's alternate side parking regulations, we discuss a classic film I've finally just gotten around to seeing. Alternate Sides, a new podcast about movies, parking, and a 25-year friendship, wherever you get your podcasts.
So we picked Assault on Precinct 13. This was really like his first kind of movie.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he did Dark Star before this.
But that was also he and like Dan O'Bannon.
And they were film students and stuff. And this is kind of the first time he worked as a director for a studio type film, even though it's kind of indie, and had like a bigger budget.
Oh, much bigger. I mean, Dark Star.
Although it's still not even $1 million. I think he said it was like 900,000.
No, I think he said 100,000.
Oh, 100,000?
Yeah, I mean,
oh my God,
insane,
even smaller.
Like for Dark Star, it was a weekend project. They would work, then they would get money so they could go and keep shooting some more.
Wow.
And so it was something where this film was really John Carpenter in the driver's seat as director. Because when you look at Dark Star, they said that it wasn't just John Carpenter's sensibilities that were in there. It was also Dan O'Bannon. So in terms of the vision, it was more of a shared vision with Dark Star. And then with Assault on Precinct 13, we really come into John Carpenter's, roots. And by that, we mean, of course, Howard Hawks.
Yeah. And he defines a lot of what becomes his style, this movie, because it is like a Western inspired kind of thing with kind of a thriller horror element, political.
Rio Bravo in there, I guess. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. The Rio Bravo connections are crazy. And this is also the first film that he used Panavision, which he used on every single film. It's only the first film that he did, Dark Star, and then The Ward, the bookends. Those are the only two that aren't in this Panavision. And that was his thing, because he was happy to, take a lot less money on a lot of the other aspects. But he said, I want Panavision. I want the best developing place. I want the best place for my music. Yeah. And you can see it because, I mean, when they do these remasters, I mean, you can just see how good, the work was.
Well, and I would also say, like, this is one of our favorites of his catalog. I mean, we pretty much love most of his movies.
Oh,
I think with a couple, maybe exceptions. But overall, we find a lot to love here. And we went to an event here in LA in October, actually, where he was signing things. And I brought our Blu-ray of Assault on Precinct 13 and had him sign it because
awesome.
I love this movie. And it's just, it's a great example of what you can do without much to work with, resource-wise. And it's just smart.
Have you guys been to Anderson then, or is it fairly local to you?
Does Anderson exist?
That's a great question.
Oh, right.
I don't know. I don't know that it's an actual place. It could be.
I don't know if
I'm terrible with geography. Like, you don't even want to ask me directions to go down the street.
Same, yeah.
They're filming locations. I mean, they film in several different places here.
Right.
I guess we watched some background info here, and kind of this ghetto type area is in South Central Los Angeles, and they actually filmed it there before they built the Century Freeway. So that area is now a freeway. The really awesome kind of decommissioning police station, this kind of great looking Art Deco building, is, I guess, the old Venice police station. And at some point in the early 2000s, I guess it still existed. I kind of want to look and see. But a lot of these places do look familiar to me. Like when Austin Stoker is like leaving his house at the beginning, that's in East Hollywood. I feel like I've seen that street before with those nice kind of houses on it. And then, he drives through the worst part of town. But they did a pretty good job, like, I think, finding places that looked desolate, even though there's nowhere in LA that really looks desolate.
The perfect example is when they look across the street from the police station. That's actually on Ventura Boulevard,
which is
a really nice area.
An hour drive away from Venice, probably. So,
and it's a nice parking lot. The parking lot looks scary in the movie when we see it across the street, and you see all the, the gang members running in. But it is just like the parking lot, I think, of like an old tiki bar, I believe you said, or something. So it's pretty funny.
But they're using, I think they have like 4 kind of different locations just in that one park, because they have the establishing of this building, which is this cool building in Venice. Then inside the building is a soundstage, and then these outside shots are like 2 different areas of Los Angeles that are completely far away. So
with a phone booth that's just on its own.
The isolated phone booth. Like
it looks so nice too, doesn't it? It just looks great,
I know. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, no one would rough up a phone booth.
So, guys, what happens in Assault on Precinct 13?
So, if I can distill it to the most simple story, basically we have a gang, which Tommy Lee Wallace in the commentary referred to as like the UN of gangs, because it has like a really multiracial, perfectly selected group of members. They are retaliating against the police who have killed some of their people at the very beginning of the movie.
I think it's because they steal a load of assault weapons, don't they? And so the cops shoot them.
Yeah, but, they really take that as a major affront, and they decide to retaliate against the police, and they're riding around, just meaning to cause havoc, and they actually shoot a little girl. The little girl's father then shoots one of them, and now the retaliation is on him as well. He runs into the nearest police station, which is actually being decommissioned, and they have very few people, very few resources. And at the same time, a prisoner transport has to stop, and the closest police station to them is also this decommissioning building. So they drop out 3 prisoners, put them in their holding cells, and at that point, the siege begins. The rest of the movie is pretty much that, a siege of these zombie-like, non-speaking gang members against these increasingly few people in a decommissioned police building. Well, and the cops and criminals have to work together, and it's interesting.
Well, what's wild about it is like the influence of the story is like it's a cross between Howard Hawks' Rio Bravo and also Night of the Living Dead, which is really wild when you look at it, because all of the gang members, are just kind of these faceless things, and they just come at you. Nobody talks, and it's scary. And when you look at, Night of the Living Dead, there are different sequences that even correspond. They match up. Like there's this one scene, because in Night of the Living Dead, they're in a graveyard. They end up in this farmhouse, and they're holed up there as all the zombies attack them. And it's kind of like the Precinct. I mean, we even have, a scene where a couple gets out of this farmhouse to get to a truck. They get killed. Very similar to what we see in this film. When we see, the prisoner run to the car, get in, and then there's the guy in the back seat
when he's almost escaped.
And that's like Halloween also. Like we see that later in Halloween when Nancy Loomis gets killed in that. But I don't know. There's so much. There's so much.
Boaz, initial reactions to this one then?
Yeah, I liked it. And I kind of agree. I think they did a lot with the limited budget they had. And there's some really good decisions in this. Yeah, I quite liked it. It's a little short, but I guess that's sort of the trade-off. But I was enjoying it quite a lot.
Yeah, I really liked it as well. I've seen this before many, many, many years ago. I didn't remember it too much. But yeah, it's got some really interesting themes on morality and things with the 2 prisoner characters, which I found really interesting. But you can definitely see in this film where Carpenter's roots are coming from, and where the basis point for his development of the rest of his career has come from, You're like, oh yeah, that's kind of a little bit like this one, and but we'll get into it. So directing then, the opening scene is really interesting to me because firstly, it really sets the tone of this film where the cops blow away this gang with shotguns quite violently. Secondly, the cops are faceless. You don't see their faces at all. You just see them holding their shotguns. That's about it. It suggests that the police are not necessarily the good guys here going in, but I think it just sets up this revenge angle for the gang. It's just a very interesting decision from John Carpenter just to show the shotguns with a very tight angle on these cops. So did you notice that?
Well, yeah, because the way that we see the gang members killed, it's like they're corralled. It's almost like the way that cattle will go to the slaughter. Yeah. They're running through this tight corridor, this alleyway, and then the cops are up above and they just kill them. So it's like a turkey shoot. There's no way you could miss.
It's like a Western again too, though, because how many times in a Western do you have people up on the canyon walls, and then people are walking through the canyon?
Yeah, that's good.
And they're kind of shooting fish in a barrel there.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I quite like that, and I did like the cuts to every time they unloaded a round, it would go to their shotgun back to them running around, and then bang again, and then back to a cut of them shooting and stuff. Yeah, I quite like that. It was pretty cool. But, and yeah, you do get the sense that, the cops are, it's like this sort of scary other, and then you kind of feel sympathy for the criminals, but then you get that reverse through the rest of the film, how the criminals are just like this faceless other, and you're really close with the people. Yeah, I just think that's kind of interesting.
So this is not a horror film. And John Carpenter hadn't made a horror feature yet, but you can definitely see this like horror sensibility in this film when the gang chases Martin West down the street at night. Like the gunmen are barely visible in a big wide shot as they slowly come for West, and just that big wide shot of all the gang across the street pointing their guns at the precinct as Martin West like runs in, and then later Chaney looks out the window and sees nothing at all. That's had a very like Halloween feel to it to me, which of course was Carpenter's next film. Yeah. Pretty much very similar narrative style there to Halloween. I really like that.
Well, they also had Rio Bravo. This was really interesting because we went back and we did that. There are scenes in that at night where, there are guys going out on patrol in this town, and it's very scary. There are creaky doors. There's like an animal, and it turns out to be a donkey, which is pretty funny, which scares the hell out of John Wayne. So it's like you have all these different things. You have a shooting in the night. You have, this chase. The biggest thing that we saw that really carried over from Rio Bravo was in the film, of course, what happens is the police, they're trying to go to the precinct. This is very near the end of the film. They're trying to find out what the commotion is. They don't see anything at the precinct. Then they hear something and like, what is that? Is this rain? And then they look and they feel that it's blood, and they see that, up above, it's like a telephone line man hanging there. So in Rio Bravo, what happens is in one of these night scenes that I was talking about, John Wayne and Dean Martin are out, and another one of their team is killed. He's murdered, and he runs into a bar, and they want to find this guy that has muddy boots, and all the gang is there. Yeah. None of them have muddy boots. And then we get this kind of wide shot, and we see up above on the balcony, the bad guy is actually in the shadows. So we know that he's there. And we also know that Dean Martin had shot him prior to him entering the bar. So he's bleeding. So Dean Martin's going to give up. He's going to have a drink at the bar. There's a glass of beer on the bar. And what happens is the bad guy upstairs is bleeding so much, the blood is actually dripping into the beer glass.
Oh, yeah. I remember now.
And so then it's like, oh, okay. Then, we get him. So it's like a direct callback to Rio Bravo in Assault on Precinct 13. I love how he does that.
Yeah, it's very clever. It's very clever. And I mean, kind of what I was saying back about, that I think we see Carpenter establishing some of his permanent moves.
Good way to put it.
I mean, I think that the criminals are like a whole gaggle of Michael Myers's, like a non-supernatural group of them, but they're the silent threat, right? I mean, but they're like unstoppable pretty much, at least to the people stuck in this precinct. And, I just felt like he loves that kind of a threat.
I especially like how he peppers them in at the start, because you've got the setup, which is like half an hour. You've got all these things to set up to get them together. But every so often, the bad guys are just doing something. And I like, with the first scene where they're where you see them and they're doing a sort of blood ritual.
Yeah.
Like, a blood thing. And that's pretty creepy. Then it gets on with the rest of the story. And then when they're practicing their aim on civilians, and he's like lightly pressing the trigger, and you're like, what the hell? And then it gets on with the rest of the setup, and they just keep like showing up, and you're like, oh, this is eerie. And yeah, that does remind me of like Halloween, where even during the setup, Michael Myers is just hanging about, and you're like, what the hell's going on? And the music changes as well. I do like that, to keep like this eerie music whenever they show up, so you don't forget that they're still there. They're going to make an impact at some point.
That's actually one of my favorite shots, actually. There's some really gorgeous shots here. Like, I love the shot where the camera's like mounted on the back of the gang's car, Like the late afternoon light looks amazing on the car. Then,
yes.
Then a massive silencer on a rifle comes out of the window slowly. And it reminded me a lot of like early Bond movies where an assassin shoots someone.
Oh, yeah, and you don't see them.
And all you see is like the gun poking out from somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
But then, as you said, Boaz, like you see the guy like look through the scope at random people in the crosshairs, almost pulling the trigger, and it's like a little tease that strong violence is afoot. It's quite intimidating and just like, oh god, what is going to happen in this movie? But yeah, I would say that's probably one of my favorite little sequences.
Yeah, he does a good thing with. One thing that I would say about LA is that it has these great sunsets, mostly because of the pollution.
Yay!
There's so much like goo suspended in the air that it just reflects the light in a really pretty way. So we use what we have here.
So we must stop Greta Thunberg from stopping us ruining the planet.
But
it's too pretty.
He uses that really well, and he also has kind of this documentary style thing he's trying to do with like the screen caps that tell you what time it is and where you are and things like that. Good, so I thought that was an interesting choice that was made. But I think John brought up a funny question, which was why didn't this guy kill those other people that he was citing? It was is he trying to find the right one or what's going on there?
Because that guy's nuts. I mean, all of them look nuts.
He is crazy.
Yeah, but when they're doing the blood thing in the basement, I don't know about you guys, but I was like, is this like a satanic cult? Like, is that where we're headed? Like, that's the vibe that it sent. What John Carpenter said is he was trying to again, go back to Westerns when people would make like a blood pact or a blood oath. But to me, I just felt like, weird Satanists in the basement from around the world.
I think because it was in a bowl. That's why we have like an added complexity, because it's not just like they cut hands and do blood brothers.
We used to put the bananas there, man. What are you doing?
Yeah, that's a lot of blood.
The fruit bowl. It's ruined.
They ran out of salsa for their potato chips. And it's like, there we go.
That's disgusting.
It's the right color.
They're not cannibals.
I want to see the extra footage of the guy coming in with a bag of tortilla chips. And be like, oh, God.
You're sick, man.
Oh, we need some blood now, people. Get us in the mood.
Oh, God.
Maybe they're trying to stave off the blood test from the thing, because if all of them are in there, you can't tell who's the problem.
That's smart.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I could go for that.
A lot of blood in these movies we picked.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're bloody. And
that's how we like them.
That's what we do. I mean, the shots, though, I would say the same thing as you. It was like that night shot. It was 7 p.m. There's the exterior of the police precinct, and it's incredible with the sunset. And it's like we see the yellow lights down below in the precinct, and then we see the sunset, and then we have a cut. Again, it's like it is, just like you said, like a Bond shot at night, where you have the headlight, and then you have like this crazy, beautiful sunset behind them. And they shot that actually kind of near us, near the Burbank airport, which we found out, which was funny. But it almost looks like, I don't know, the demons have been set loose. It's like they're fresh out of hell is like the feeling that you get. And it gives a real sense of terror that it's coming, and you're not exactly sure. I mean, maybe that's why the guy doesn't shoot. I think it's probably more of like, you feel like he could do anything.
Well, but also he wants to pick like the most horrible victim. So like the little blonde girl in pigtails, just like perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, or the ridiculous ice cream man.
The ice cream man. What the fuck? They put the gun in his mouth? I mean, I was like, that's not suggestive. You know what I mean? Like,
could you imagine if he vomited like though? Like, dude, you pushed it too far in.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, then you would see his brains for sure. So.
The ice cream man was so out of his element. Like, I can't even believe he had a gun. Why is he delivering the ice cream out there?
Actually, I think this is the thing.
He hates ice cream trucks. So.
I think there's like a secret plot hidden somewhere in there, because it's like that ice cream man must have known them. Like he's looking over his shoulder.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's just a dark car.
He's like, I'm not selling ice cream today. And he sees the car and then it disappears away from him. And then he starts selling her ice cream. So to me, he knew 100% who these fucking guys were.
Yeah.
Maybe he's he could be a drug mule with an ice cream truck.
Yeah, he could be something, yeah.
What if they stole all his ice cream?
Yeah, that would...
And like he was just like, not again.
Yeah.
Not today.
Not today, Satan.
Yeah. Third time this week.
Yeah.
Fresh out of ice cream.
Got too many complaints about brain freeze.
Well, he has on like that happy shirt with all the balloons, and he seems like, kind of a friendly guy. And, when the gang pulls him out, and it's just like, they do that to him. It's just like, Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then you feel like this is like a major violation. We can't go any further than that.
Yes,
and then exactly, that's what we find out. And then you're like screaming at the television, don't go back. She comes back, she gets shot. And what was interesting about this was the effect. They actually had like some tubes in the back of the ice cream cone. So that's how it looked like she got shot. It would just spray her. And they said at first that, that she was scared, about dying, which I totally get it, but then after she did it the first time, it was kind of fun.
Kill me again.
Exactly.
Well, you've been recently shot on camera when you were in Babylon.
Yeah, it's scary shit.
PTSD.
I'm like, if you like are sitting there and you keep seeing a guy coming through the door and pointing a gun at you, and it makes like a real sound, and then like there's blood shooting out of you and shit is exploding.
Yeah.
You're like, did I die?
Yeah.
Did I go?
Yeah. Did I actually die?
Yeah, you're like, all right, am I cool? All right. That was the funniest thing.
Oh no, it's just strawberry sauce. It's fine.
It's fun. Well, it was so funny. People would say to me, John, you look like you were really dead. I was like, I felt dead.
You felt dead.
Yeah, it was there.
Yeah. No, although there's a lot of squibs and shooting in this one.
Oh, yeah.
People flying all over the place.
I think a lot of the action has this very like repetitive feel to it, and like added paper flying does the trick nicely in the first assault on the precinct. It also has this like Sam Peckinpah style of gun violence in its repetition, but I'm not sure it doesn't quite get there for me, I don't think. But like the creativity of the last action scene I thought was interesting, with Wilson and Bishop holding up the sign to make like the hallway shorter, and the smoke bomb blocking the view of the bomb created some great tension there. So you definitely feel like the scope that Carpenter is trying to achieve here. Like the film is a nice like warm-up film for what's to come in Carpenter's career, I would say. But I love that shot when the police enter the precinct at the end and they wait for the smoke to disperse, and you see our characters stand there still hoping that they won't get shot. That was great.
Oh, yeah, that was good. Yeah, I was going to say with the little girl, I also like how it was done, where it was so sudden and the guy just did it like he's swatting a fly. Like there was no, there's been building of suspense throughout that point, but after he shoots that guy and she comes in, just bang, just shoots her, just like nothing, and then goes back to him and bang, and then he just walks away, just like nothing happened. I think that's pretty good. Like whenever they do stuff like that, because you don't expect it, because too many scenes like that, they'll try and draw it out for effect. But I like that it's just done like that, because this guy just treats life. Yeah, he treats life like it's nothing. So.
I didn't think he was dead. When the father caught up with him and shot him at first, I'm like, he has a vest on.
Yeah.
I've seen this a million times, and I say this every time. I'm like, I don't see any blood. I think he's just going to get up and get the dad.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought so as well. And I thought it was kind of a shame, because up to that point, he was like the coolest looking villain. Like you think he's going to be the villain. And that did really cut a rug under me. I was like, man, he would have been a really cool end antagonist. Like there's something about him. But yeah, so I thought that was a bit of a shame. But yeah. I actually did really like the camera, this one particular camera usage when the dad is driving through the night, when it gets to dark, and he catches up with the car. And I like that you have a camera angle, like, I can't really explain it. It's like it's on the axle of the wheel, or it's like attached to the car, the camera is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and like I just like whenever that happens in a film. I think I was acutely aware of it when they did that in one episode of Breaking Bad, of like attaching a camera to a car axle. It's just one of those things like I don't see enough, and I just thought that was a really cool a cool shot.
Would that be your favorite shot, Boaz?
I think that's probably my favorite shot. Yeah, not my favorite scene, but my favorite shot. I just like when they do stuff like that, just attach a camera to something that you don't usually attach a camera to.
Georgia, favorite shot or scene?
Oh gosh, there are so many. When we watched it a couple times, and the first time I had a totally different one than the second time. But I think that my favorite scene is probably when the attack starts. Laurie Zimmer has to go down and let out the prisoners because they're trying to get them out and also get them to help. And just that entire sequence where she's down there, it's like really harrowing.
Yeah,
she's trying to open the door and let these guys out, and there's so much noise and all this, and then the guys start coming through, and she gets shot in the arm, and at first it's like shocked, but then like Napoleon Wilson kind of springs into action too,
kicks him
and
ass.
He's such a great character, and this is when he really starts going for it. So I really like that, and of course like that kind of feeds into the next part where he's like holding the door to keep them out. He has to let it go to grab the shotgun, and then instantly just blows away the guys that stream through the door, which is really cool.
Yeah,
that's like again Howard Hawks. That's another Howard Hawks move. And also they have like all these cigarette references, which are big in Howard Hawks' films. There's always something about cigarettes, like in Rio Bravo. You have a cigarette, you have tobacco. We need supplies. We need tobacco. It's just like, okay, like they keep that bit going.
But I think the reason I like that scene also is because we're finally getting some major action starting, because it's a very slow build, this movie. And, we listened to a Carpenter commentary, and part of that, I guess, is because he kind of needed to stretch it out to make the movie longer. It's only an hour and 30 minutes at that. And we kind of looked at the time code, and Martin West doesn't even show up at the police station until 40 minutes in. So we're almost halfway when things really start cranking up.
Yeah.
So I liked, we're finally getting the action to start ratcheting up.
Yeah.
And it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
I thought Martin West was very sketchy as that father. I didn't trust him, and I didn't like him.
Okay.
I just didn't like anything that was going on with him.
I think when he started and he's talking to his daughter about like what she should say to, I think, her mother or something. And he's really worried about the cops, where she's like, oh, we can ask a policeman for direction. And he's like, nope. You know what I mean? He's like, your teacher does not know what she's talking about, that you can trust a policeman. And I'm like, why is he so sketchy around police?
Right.
So I thought there was going to be something about that, but that never happened.
John, favorite shot or scene?
Favorite scene for me, I'm torn, but I think what I'd have to go with is the very ending. I think the scene between Austin Stoker and Darwin Jostin, when they're talking about leaving the building, and it's decided that he will come out with him.
Yeah, that was good.
I think that Austin Stoker, that is my favorite work from him in the film. When one of the cops comes in and tries to chain, Napoleon, and he's like, no, leave him alone. The cop comes again and he pushes him hard. And he said, no, leave him alone. Like, he really puts the guy in line. And there's this moment where, these two guys, they are equals. And that's kind of, I feel that that's been a struggle throughout the film, because we have law enforcement and criminal. But at that point, we feel completely comfortable with Napoleon. I mean, he's had, many opportunities to leave. He's had a loaded weapon. It's like, it's crazy, the romance with he and Laurie Zimmer, which never has like any physical component. The biggest thing that we have is she puts a cigarette in his mouth and lights it.
Yeah.
But it's just like that. The non-verbal acting is so strong in this movie. And that final piece with Stoker and Jostin when they're walking out. I mean, I'm just like, wow, these guys are awesome.
Yeah, and Napoleon is such a proto kind of Carpenter hero.
Yeah, like Snake Plissken.
Yeah, he's like pre-Plissken.
Call me Snake.
Instead, we got sardonic Gotta Smoke guy.
I like Gotta Smoke. It reminds me of like the Got Milk ads.
But he's he's got like all of these one-liners, and it's just the kind of anti-hero type that Carpenter really depends on in a lot of other movies, and I like that.
Boaz, directing score, what should we go with for Assault on Precinct 13?
Oh,
I'm thinking like a 7.8, 7.5.
Yeah, it's 7.8, I guess.
I feel like this is like the training wheels movie for John Carpenter, even though he made a lot of shorts and stuff before this. But I'm not necessarily thinking that you're left wanting more, but certainly thinking of like a lot of cinema now. But there's a lot of great stuff here. But yeah, I think I wouldn't necessarily put this in my top 3 or 5 Carpenter films for me. So I think 7.8 would be fair for me. Guys, Comfort Films, what's your directing score for Assault on Precinct 13?
We went a little higher than that. We had initially gone even higher, but then after we heard Carpenter's commentary, he kind of convinced us that it wasn't as good as we thought. He doesn't, he sees all of his mistakes, and we're like, oh, wait, I didn't notice that. But we still went with an 8.5 here.
Okay.
Just because, again, maybe we're grading on a curve a little bit, but the resources he had available, the fact that this is his first movie, like real movie, we thought he really did a lot with very little here. Yeah, it's definitely a training wheels movie, but we went 8.5.
Well, for a project like this, your first one out of the gate, what impressed me so much is he knew what he wanted from his shots. And, the pacing, he talks about it a lot in the commentary, and I do agree. It should be faster. And then there were different reasons for that. For example, like dolly shots where he didn't have much time.
Yeah.
Or he didn't have much time in general. So, there's a shot where we see Austin Stoker getting into his car at the beginning of the film. And like John Carpenter's like, okay, pick up the pace. But he couldn't do anything because
he only had the one shot.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't, film costed a lot of money at the time. So he only has so much he can do. And he did a lot with that. And he's very confident in his choices.
I quite like the pacing. Certainly in the beginning, I do love a slow build-up film. As this is very much based on Westerns, as you say. And for me, with Westerns, the slower the better. Like, the good, the bad, and the ugly is as slow as you come, pretty much.
That's true.
And
sure.
I kind of like that. I guess with the pacing stuff, with the dialogue sometimes, maybe as we're going into screenplay now, like the dialogue sometimes could be a little faster, I would say. With a lot of like the wide stuff and that first 30 minutes, like I really enjoyed that stuff of their slow build. I get a kick out of that, and I do really enjoy that. I think the only thing I would add with like the child murder with screenplay is that I did not expect the child to be the first person that dies in this film. I was like, oh my God, that was so shocking. I think I did gasp out loud rewatching this for this podcast. It's still very shocking today for me.
It's definitely shocking. I mean, they were actually going to be given an X rating if they didn't cut the scene. Yeah. So what they did is they cut the scene and gave that to the ratings board and then sent out the one with the actual murder. So that's how they got around that.
Very audacious, and it worked.
They did it. Well, it's for me, the problem, I don't mind a slow build. There are a lot of slow builds that I like. I just feel in this film that in terms of the actors that he was working with, he wasn't working with people that were as experienced. And, some of the dialogue, Carpenter says himself may be a bit clunky, but you have actors out there like Jack Lemmon, not that I really see Jack Lemmon in this movie, but just to give you the idea.
It was a very different film.
Grumpy Old Men, Assault on Precinct 13, all in the same arena. And it's just like, I feel like if you had someone like that, an actor that worked with, let's say, Billy Wilder, for example, where you couldn't change a single word and you had to sell it, I feel that it would have filled out better for me. I think the reason that Carpenter talks about faster pacing, particularly in the beginning, is because if you are able to minimize the screen time of some of these folks, it actually would make their performances seem much stronger. I feel like acting wise, we have some that are excellent and we have some, that, still have some experience that they need to gain. So that's my thing with the pacing. I feel like when we do finally, get underway, with the shooting, with the actual siege, I feel like I'm locked in until the end.
For sure. I always find it great when a film forces like good characters and bad characters to work together. But in this film, as you're watching it, you have like Napoleon Wilson and Wells like stuck in the cells after the first attack. And you're wondering, when are they going to let them out to help? Because they clearly need it. They're massively outnumbered. And I was expecting more of a debate on whether to let them out or not. But Bishop just decides very quickly to let them out before the second attack. But the disagreement and tension happens between the characters after that second attack, and whether the prisoners should stand and fight or just run for it. And they discover a way out through a manhole, which is near a car. And it very much separates Wells and Wilson's characters morally. Wilson is willing to help, and Wells is scared and willing to kill Lee. And Wells begrudgingly ends up getting to the car, but the little conversation he has with Wilson before he goes into the tunnel suggests he might just leave them stranded. So it's great that they don't go down that predictable route with a discussion before they let them out of the cells, but rather the route that creates more interesting character work to set up Wilson having a moral code, and he understands that they're all in this together. So I kind of like that. A little change up of predictability for me of what we've previously seen in these types of situations.
Yeah, you felt like time was really present.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, we have that with the timestamp. And then we also just have a feeling that these guys could bust in at any second. So there's no time to really debate this. And that's what I like so much. I mean, the economy, I think, is the biggest word that I would use with this film in all ways. Laurie Zimmer's character, I mean, Lee, incredible. I mean, she gets shot in the arm,
I like that.
Doesn't even flinch. Then she shoots the guy. I love that we have, strong female characters, another thing from Howard Hawks, that we see. In Rio Bravo, there's like this romance between John Wayne and Angie Dickinson, and there are some physical aspects to that, but they're able to really sell that kind of a smoldering chemistry that we see between Wilson and Lee. This movie is all about showing you and not telling you, which I really, really like.
Absolutely,
Yeah, that's true. I think the manhole was very convenient, however.
He even says it.
Yeah.
He even says it, yeah.
Like, why is there a trap door kind of thing that goes into a manhole? I don't know.
Yeah.
Bizarre choices. But
I did like that idea that he was never going to get away because they have a guy in the back seat the whole time. That was quite a great reveal. But yeah, it's interesting with like the differences between Wells and Napoleon Wilson, because Napoleon Wilson does seem like a pretty scary guy. Like when he has those conversations on the bus with
Charles Cyphers is the actor.
Yeah, Charles Cyphers. And he's trying to figure out like why you like this. And, he has this whole story about a preacher says there's something off about you. And then he kind of proves it in his past. So there's a lot of like ambiguity with Nelson, but with Wells, it's very much, I guess, a little stereotypical with he's the scared guy that doesn't really know what to do and just is very selfish in his plan to just trying to get out alive and screw these guys. Whereas there's a lot of kind of back and forth with Napoleon. Like in the beginning, you're like, you don't really have a big handle on who this guy is. Is he going to help them or not? So I do like kind of the writing in there as well as his performance.
Well, we see it from the beginning, that's one of the things that I like is we go into the prison cell and there are a lot of dolly shots, but our first shot of Napoleon is not only a dolly shot, but a zoom. Yeah. Like we get right into him, and I get a feeling, almost like with like a Hannibal Lecter or something. We understand that this is a big deal, and we understand this is a guy that can move very fast and kill you. And instead of like, being jittery and jacked up and yelling and, foaming at the mouth, he just sits there, which is so much more scary. And then he has that interaction with the warden, which again, it tells us everything. The warden, hits him in the back of the head, knocks him off the chair. And it's like, somebody's like, is there a problem here? He's like, oh, no problem. I'm always falling off the chair.
I don't sit in chairs as well as I used to.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. That's a great line.
Yeah.
And then he gets his revenge.
Yeah. He trips him up. He throws the thing.
Yes.
And then he goes, he doesn't stand.
He doesn't stand as good as he used to.
Yeah. Yeah. That was brilliant. Yeah.
And that's it. It's the reciprocity. So it's like, I don't know the Napoleon Wilson story. I would like to know, but I think that the mythology of it, is part of it. Like we don't know.
Yeah, I think it's kind of implied that whatever he did was fucking horrible. And, so...
You don't really want to know, though, do you?
Yeah, I don't think you would want to know, because at the end, I really like him. And I think if they had revealed what it was, and they're hinting that it was something really bad. So, but I think you just hint at it enough so you think, oh, he could be the bad guy, and then he turns out to be a badass. So you're like, oh, maybe I was wrong about you, and maybe what you did wasn't that bad, or whatever. I can make it up in my head.
When they bring this type of character back with Snake Plissken, they do kind of make the backstory, so
he's a robber.
Yeah, like what he did, and
you kind of retcon it, so it's not as bad. So but I think to keep it ambiguous, if you want to in your head have him like he's a horrible anti-hero or he's selfish, then you can have that, but you can also have the version that maybe he's misunderstood or maybe what he did wasn't too bad or whatever. You can sort of make up the backstory.
I think about Con Air.
Yes,
almost.
exactly.
Yeah, with
exactly.
Steve Buscemi's character, Garland Green.
Yeah.
Who's
I'm not thinking about that.
Well,
guy.
that's who I'm
right.
thinking about.
Oh,
He's like a horrendous serial killer. And,
Oh, yeah, that was bad. Yeah, I remember that.
He escapes and meets the little girl, and you're terrified he's going to eat her because he's a cannibal or something.
He seems like the nicest guy.
But he's just nice. He plays Barbies with her,
Yeah,
right.
Funny,
They have a tea party. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking about more along the lines of the Nick Cage and Con Air. Like he, I felt like with what we saw with the warden and how that worked, maybe that was the situation that he ran into, is somebody fucked with him, so he fucked with them back, but he went too far. Now, again, maybe that's just me, because like you, Boaz, I like the character and I'm trying to think the best of him. He's our friend. I don't know. He should be a teddy bear.
Yeah, I think they leave enough story-wise where there's a lot of little bits around the peripheries that are just not explained, but there's something hinted to. So as I said, I feel like the ice cream man knew something. I don't know what it was, but it feels like he's more tooled up on what's going on. The father as well, he seems like he's hiding something. What's funny is they set it up throughout the plot that he's hiding something. Even the other people there, they're like, I don't trust him, I just don't trust it. They keep mentioning him when he's even not in shot. And so I kept thinking, is he going to do something? But he doesn't do anything. So it just feels like there's so much lore that he's building in the background. But just not exploring. So I'm not sure if he was sequel baiting or just making everybody very curious about the world intentionally or something like that.
It is interesting that they kind of sideline Martin West and Charles Cyphers. I think it is the guy on the bus. He gets shot very early on, Cyphers, and he had quite an interesting relationship with Napoleon.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see if they could have maybe had him
kept him on a bit,
live a little longer. And with West, it was kind of very strange that he's pretty much sidelined and very completely silent, like the guys outside. You don't really see him well, you don't really see him at all, and you don't hear him at all. Yes, it's very much they're playing on the angle of he's just in complete shock. I'm not sure you would see that much these days, like completely sidelining these types of characters. I kind of understand why they do it, because it makes them feel more alone in this situation. But it's an interesting decision from Carpenter there. Would you have wanted to see those characters a little bit more? Or
yes,
yeah, I think so. I think there's a few characters that I think you do a good point that the I can't remember the name of the character or the actor, but the guy that's on the bus that's escorting Napoleon, like he does seem to like want to connect with him or whatever, or understand him. I thought that would have been a really interesting dynamic if him and
No Name Spies, Napoleon Wilson.
Yeah, Wells. Yeah, him and Wells have like completely different views on Napoleon. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, that would be interesting. I guess Starker is the name of the Charles Cypher character on the bus.
Yeah,
never knew.
I don't remember that. I just keep calling him Charles Cyphers, but
me too. Because he's a regular with John Carpenter. And,
he's in Halloween and other things.
Going back to like the acting note, he's Brackett, Sheriff Brackett. Yeah, he also was in The Fog, and then he's in Major League, not a John Carpenter movie later, but with Charles Cyphers, he's such a good actor, and he has such a commanding presence that losing him really is a much bigger loss. Like I wish we could have kept him on. You know what I mean, for the Siege.
Yeah,
but I think partially the reason they get rid of him is because there's this whole like discussion that Napoleon has with Bishop, I think, about no, it's actually him. So he says, you're a cop, you're either curious about me or you want to give me some shit. And he says, I don't understand. And he's like, oh, you're curious. And so I think he kind of serves the role of kind of being the person who opens Wilson up for us a little bit. Mm-hmm. But once we get to the Siege thing, there's really no opportunity for exploration of character and trying to decide if somebody's good or bad. You just kind of have to be decisive. And Bishop is, pretty decisive and just being like, look, I don't really, he doesn't want to, have the guy be a bad person who then, attacks from within. But at the same time, his options are limited and he can't really take time to think it over.
Well, you kind of get separated a bit morally with the fact that Wells is kind of a real coward, moral coward, and Wells makes Wilson look better than he actually is, maybe.
True.
So I think they kind of work it through that angle when Stalker dies.
Tony Burton is such a good actor, though. He was in 6 Rocky movies.
No,
that's Wells. The other prisoner guy.
Yeah, Wells. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. Like, because like I like him so much as an actor. Okay, I know, like, he pulls a gun on Lee. He's going to escape. We have some questions here. I don't know what it is. I don't know why, but like I trust him.
Oh, really? I wouldn't trust that guy. No way.
I love his acting.
Yeah, no, I thought he acted pretty well. Yeah,
he was great.
I also really liked because he turns out to be a coward and is really just wants to get out of here and doesn't want it. This isn't his fight, sort of thing. But when you first see him, he's like super confident and almost like at a sort of pissing contest with Napoleon, like of who's the bigger badass. Like you can tell he's sort of like you don't intimidate me sort of thing to Napoleon. But later he's actually sort of and I think he does a good job of acting like the jock and then like he's kind of shit scared. I think he does a good job. And like those are 2 entirely different, modes.
Yeah, he would have fit in with like the Predator team.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
For sure, yeah.
He would have been great.
Where he's like, oh yeah, we're going to fuck these guys up. We'll fuck this creature. And then like he's bawling in tears and, running scared and stuff. Yeah.
Well, what about like, I saw this in his credits. I don't remember it. Our guy Wells, Tony Burton, was in The Shining, guys.
Was he?
Yeah.
Who the hell did he play in that?
I saw the name and I was like, who? Like, I don't even remember this character.
What was the name?
Did he play the old woman?
Yeah,
The guy in the bear suit, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe all the ghosts. He played all the ghosts. And Jack Nicholson. He's that good.
The invisible one.
He was the stand-in for Danny. You know what I mean?
That would be hilarious.
It's for Danny.
Let me see. Let's see if I'm nuts. Because I'm serious. I saw this and I was like, God, yeah, he's right here. Tony Burton played Durkin. Who the hell was Durkin? Who the hell was Durkin, guys?
I gotta check this out.
Know.
Durkin.
Gotta be the guy in the bear suit.
Yeah, that's your money. I think he's that skeleton. I think he's the skeleton we see in the living room there. I think that's it. The lobby.
While you're searching, favorite lines, I think mine would have to be first time I ever saw a preacher. He said to me, "Son, there's something strange about you. You got something to do with death."
Yeah, that's a good one.
Being real young, I believe him. Turned out he was right. That's no answer. Favorite line, John?
Gotta smoke. You know?
Yeah.
It's simple, it's great, and he brings so much to it. It's wonderful because, again, Darwin Jostin was actually a neighbor of John Carpenter's, which is totally wild. And it's just like you feel like you get to know this guy. And I really like how low key he is. Like, he's lethal, but he's low key. And these are the people that really interest me. Yeah, Gotta Smoke. It's different every time. It's funny every time. And when he does get that cigarette from Lee, man, is he happy.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Favorite line, Georgia?
Oh, gosh. Napoleon has so many good ones.
He does.
Like he says, I was born out of time.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
He says, you look like somebody spit in your socks or something.
Yeah. He's got so many great lines.
And I can't argue with a confident man.
Yeah.
I like it when he and Lee are kind of in that room and she only has 2 shots left in the gun. And she's like, should I save him for us? And he says, save him for the first 2 assholes who come through that vent.
Yeah.
I think I like it because it just tells you who this guy is. Like,
no nonsense.
He's not going to give up. He's just going to fight until he can't fight anymore. And that's kind of what they need in that situation. So I like that.
Boaz?
So I like all of those quotes. They're great. I've got one in mind, which was, in my situation, days are like women. Each one's so damn precious, but they all end up leaving you.
Only in a 70s movie.
Yeah. Oh, actually, there was another quote. There's another quote I really liked where Bishop, Lieutenant Ethan Bishop, yeah, you know that character,
yeah, the main character,
yeah, where he goes to the precinct. The girl asks if he wants some coffee. Do you remember that bit? And she says black, and he's like, yes, for over 30 years or something like that. Like, because, you know, he's black, you know, and that made me laugh. You know?
Yeah, you're the only one who can say that, yeah.
I like it because he knows it's a terrible joke immediately, but he couldn't help himself.
Yeah, he's like, I'm sorry. Yeah,
yeah, that fits right in because I feel like Bishop is that kind of guy. Like, I feel like he's a fun guy, but he's very dry, and you don't know when he's joking or when he's not. I think I think you would have like that kind of relationship with him.
Yeah,
very fun character.
Yeah, I think actually, you know, that could be another reason why because I do think I like the guy that was because I can't remember his name now, but the guy that first is transporting Napoleon on the bus, that cop, and he dies quite early, and, you know, that is a shame. I would like to see more of him. I did like the character and the acting. But if you get rid of him, then you have to have Stoker, who has, like, no experience, take charge. Like, he's the most experienced person on the team. And he has, like, no experience. So if you had the other guy, maybe they'd be in a sort of more organized position. But you have to sort of, you know, learn with this guy who's it's like his first day on the job. So
that's interesting. That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That could be a reason why they got rid of him so early, because I did like that character, but it could be a reason of you get rid of the most experienced person like straight away, then they're in a lot of trouble, you know.
Makes the situation more dire, for them.
Yeah.
It's like the corollary between, you know, the Charles Cyphers character, and then there's this guy that brings in supplies at the beginning of Rio Bravo. His name is Wheeler. And Wheeler, once he decides to team up with John Wayne and Dean Martin and you know, do justice, he gets killed. He gets killed in the night. And that's exactly what happens with Charles Cyphers. So it's like, we see him on the phone, then they decide to get out. So finally, when action is being taken, he gets killed, but before anything can come.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's part of it. And yes, they always want to kill everyone that you think will make a situation okay. And Charles Cyphers is very even.
Yeah.
Even more even than Austin Stoker. And Austin Stoker is very level too.
Yeah, he doesn't panic like at all. It's just like same old stuff every day.
It's like, I had this happen last week.
That is fine. We can do it.
He doesn't care. He doesn't care.
Well, it's a good quality in a guy that works with prisoners and transport and all this to not be too flappable.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. It's an unstoppable guy. Like, I mean, he got, Austin Stoker to let him drop off these prisoners when there was no way, that should have been something that was allowed to happen.
Oh, yeah, it shouldn't have been allowed. Yeah, he's like, we're not actually open. He's like, you're letting us in, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, go on then.
Yeah.
It's fine. We'll basically move to the other place, but yeah, sure, let's bring some prisoners in.
I mean, by the way, it is Los Angeles. There's like a police station probably like every 2 miles or something.
Oh, really?
Like, no, we need this one.
This is the one.
Yeah.
Screenplay score, Boaz? What should we go for Assault on Precinct 13? I'm thinking an 8.3.
Yeah, the script is pretty good. Maybe just an 8.
Just an 8? 8.1 then?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I quite like the, just the character dynamics and from a moral sense. Can you trust these guys or not? The prisoners. Yeah. So I do like that aspect. So 8.1, I think.
I also think there are some great lines and characterization as well.
Comfort films?
We went around that same. We were hovering around the 8 area, but we went with 7.8.
Okay.
We thought overall the combination of the Rio Bravo Howard Hawks kind of story with Night of the Living Dead was really a brilliant choice and really well executed. But we just felt sometimes things got a little clunky and some plot type things were a little convenient. But overall, like if you're not picking it apart to death, it was still great. So 7.8.
It's a very solid script and it's a great concept that we see through from start to finish.
Yeah.
And along the way, we see a couple of things. Once again, I'm on the Martin West character, this father. What? Like, I mean, we've got to get, the nanny out of this bad area to come with me to my crime house. Like, what? Like, I don't, that to me was that just sat really odd. And I also, didn't know if there were more beats that were being played for humor, because if we looked at that scene in a vacuum with Martin West and, the girl, I believe her name was Kim Daniels. I'm not sure. It's just like you have this all-American clean cut, Disney actress, because that's what she did. And then you have, this older soap actor, right? So it's like you have, the father looking all amped up. And then, you have, Kim Richards is her name. Kim Richards, is the daughter, just so peppy and happy in spite of her dad's, like, in my opinion, like, clear insanity.
Total sketch, yeah.
Sketchy behavior.
It's like a bit from Airplane.
Sus Dad. That should have just been his name.
Roger.
Yeah. I don't know if he had I don't know what the character's name is, but I'm just gonna say Sus Dad.
I think Sus Dad should have been marked as such.
I think he actually in my opinion, I think he should have played like a bigger role after the the vengeance or whatever. There should have been something with him at least towards the end. Yeah. I felt that was a missing plot point.
He was just like a corpse.
Yeah, acting then again it's kind of weird with his Adam West's just very blank.
Did you say Adam West?
What's his name?
Well, like Batman.
Martin West.
Martin West. There you go.
Yeah. Batman wasn't in this film. What the hell are you talking about?
That would be great if it was Adam West. Then it would have been a straight up comedy. I would have been like, oh, of course.
Adam West is Sus Dad. Yeah.
My dad forced me to watch that show a lot.
Zowie.
Yeah, no, I think Batman could have dealt with them in like 10 minutes, all this.
Oh my God.
Very different film. tonally. I wasn't sure about the acting from Laurie Zimmer, who plays Lee, when she's trying to unlock the cell to Napoleon Wilson, and one of the gang members breaks through the door and he shoots at her, and then the shot grazes her arm, and her expression doesn't change at all.
I thought that was all right.
That did strike me as a little odd.
I kind of just interpreted it as like the adrenaline and stuff. Like she's got,
Yeah,
so I didn't really have an issue with that.
Yeah, I think they were going for this kind of frozen shock thing, but it didn't quite work for me personally. But, I did like it when Napoleon breaks that guy's arm. That was nice and gnarly.
That was pretty damn good.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's also supposed to be like a Howard Hawks kind of woman, like a Lauren Bacall type secret badass or something.
Like a Sarah Connor T2 prototype is what I got out of her.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So if she took the bullet, she didn't care, She had her mission, and that's what we saw.
Because I like the scene where she was like talking down
Wells, I think.
Yeah, Wells, where she was talking him down. I thought that was pretty badass. I also think she kind of is a good juxtaposition to Julie, who is like hysterical.
I didn't exactly feel much when she died. I was like, oh, okay. That was expected.
Yeah. You're just screaming all the time and what have you, shouting you're going to die at some point. So yeah, I didn't have a problem with Lee.
Yeah, this is Laurie Zimmer's first movie also. So I thought she held her own pretty well. And I think that in the first kind of part, when she meets Bishop, it felt a little weird. I'm not really sure what they were going for with that. But once Wilson was on the scene, like I thought her stuff with him was really good. And I felt it was really believable that there could be like this attraction between these two people who are really different because of the situation. So.
Yeah, I thought they were really good together, as you guys have said, but just the gunshot thing just struck me as a tad odd. I was like, your expression has not changed whatsoever. You've just been shot.
Tis a flesh wound.
Yeah. It's like, I'm fine. I just don't have my arm anymore. Let's carry on.
Maybe she just secretly has peripheral neuropathy and can't feel anything.
Yeah.
Paralysis.
I really liked that moment so much because so many times, particularly in that time period when we saw women in these movies, they were helpless. All we would have is like the screaming and the crying and you couldn't do anything. So I was so excited to see Laurie Zimmer because she has a real presence to her. And, like if we put like Arnold Schwarzenegger in that scene and he got shot in the arm and didn't flinch.
You would believe it. Yeah,
exactly. So,
true,
and so it's like, if she did it, I don't know. I really liked her. She is really, at the top of the heap for me in terms of the actors. I will say that I did have some confusion with her first meeting, with Bishop. I did feel like maybe we were trying to say that there could, possibly be some kind of love triangle.
Oh, okay.
That was initially an idea that was dropped.
I think you're probably right, but yeah, they have no chemistry, and it did feel
none.
No,
not at all.
No,
it does feel really awkward when they talk to each other, like really, really awkward. And I think you might have a point. Like that scene might have been there because they're like, oh, let's maybe build on a love triangle, but she's only
right.
It didn't work.
Yeah, she can only really talk well with Napoleon and with Bishop. It just falls flat. So maybe they were like, get rid of that idea. That would be a terrible idea.
I did really like the acting from the gang near the beginning. There's a shot from inside the car where they're all just prepping their guns and looking incredibly relaxed about it. Like they're so comfortable about what they're about to do, it just makes them seem more dangerous. Like Frank Doubleday, who shoots the little girl. My God, that guy was so cold. Very scary.
Yeah, that's what I was saying before. Like, I wish he sort of stuck around in an ideal world. Like, this film does kill off like some pretty cool actors really quick, and he, even though he has no speaking lines, I thought he was a really badass villain. Just how he acted.
But I wasn't sure about his death scene though.
No,
it looks great to begin with, where he's just standing out of the car looking so confident he's going to kill Lawson, letting bullets fly. But Lawson shoots him several times, and it's just like he thinks he's the Terminator and just looks down like, oh, I've just been shot. And then just falls over like a bowling pin. So, yeah, that wasn't amazing.
It was Michael Myers-y again, though. I mean, like...
Yeah.
When Michael Myers gets hurt or, stabbed or whatever, he's always just like, oh...
Yeah.
Whatever,
Yeah.
Well, the inspiration for the gang member we heard in the commentary is that he wanted to just be a machine. He didn't want to have he didn't want to show any emotion. He's standing outside of the car, and I felt like he would have had on a bulletproof vest. This is a guy that knows his way.
Well, and
around a knife fight, a gunfight.
They're going into a huge fight.
He's like, oh, I forgot to put it on. Damn it.
Yeah, he just didn't care. I mean, that was weird to me. And again, him being killed, I really thought he was going to get up. Yeah. That part for me was like, but again, it's plot driven, because if we didn't have that murder, then the gang would not be chasing this sketchy father to the precinct.
Yeah, but I think, like, plot-wise, I would have killed, like, a different gang member.
Yes.
Because no other one, like, has... Every one of them is fucking interchangeable. And I think just have them shoot any other gang member and just have his creepy-ass face, show up occasionally.
What if they shot the Wolfman guy that we keep seeing?
Yeah,
this guy looks like a goddamn werewolf in the back seat. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, what's up with this guy?
Yeah, he's like, wrong movie.
Yeah.
He got lost from, like, the set of Thriller, Michael Jackson's Thriller. Just showed up in the wrong film. I was like, oh, shit.
I would have bought it. Like, I mean, I would have liked if, like, a little gun came out of his beard or something. That would have been his big move.
He opened his mouth and just had, like, teeth. Just wolf teeth.
Ate out of a dog bowl. Like, these are the scenes we needed. But, yeah, I'm with you. That one guy, that one particular actor stood out to me so much somehow as the leader of that group.
I know, and he died so early on, and you're like, he was so cool. I don't know why he was so cool.
Well, it's kind of like the same thing, though. They had to take him out because otherwise the people would have had no chance.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea.
If that guy was still around, then he wins. That's
it. Yeah. They're screwed.
Well, and then it would have gotten rid of the whole faceless thing that they had with the gang, because after that we
true.
We just, again, it was like Night of the Living Dead. It was just these zombies. It was just this horde. And what you talked about earlier, Martin, with the repetitive nature of the action. Now, this is interesting to think about. Now, John Carpenter's a big fan of video games. Now, at this time period, I don't know what, was available in terms of video games, but this game, I would play it because it's like people come, you kill an entire horde, then another one comes. So it's like, that's kind of the vibe that I get from this movie is like a video game. An older video game, one board.
Like a on-rails shooter or something.
Yeah, and you shoot everybody in the room, and it's like level 2. And
that's
then they
really
come
cool.
again.
Well, this is like, before there were really a lot of video games, so...
It was just like Pong.
Well, pinball was big at the time, and pinball had a lot of art, and it would have a lot of art on the actual playing board and up on the scoreboard. And the imagery on those things was always so impressive. I mean, it's much later than this, but I'll throw it in just for fun. There was this really great Guns N' Roses pinball machine. And it was like, where you shot the ball, it was actually a rose you pulled out.
Oh, that's cool.
Or actually, was it a gun? I can't even remember. All right, it was a great game.
Either way.
Anyway,
nice.
Back to the movie.
Favorite performance, Georgia?
I've got to go with Darwin Jostin's Napoleon Wilson. It's a fantastic character. Fantastically played by exactly the right person. I mean, it was based on his kind of real life wit, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think it was really excellent. He sticks out, most interesting and complex character in the movie.
Yeah. John?
I am the same. I am going with Darwin Jostin. I mean, he really grips you. You want more of his story. If the film dealt with more of his story, I mean, yes, it might be harder for us to like him if it was, the grim story that it could have been. but I wanted to see more. I wanted him to like get away. I wanted there to be some kind of loophole where they thought he was dead, and he and Laurie Zimmer like took off into the sunset. That would have been incredible. And then like we just see Austin Stoker just like tip his hat and be like, "Yeah, they all died. I don't know what happened. They're all dead."
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Right.
Boaz, are we going for a full house here? Darwin Johnson?
I'll go with the ice cream man.
Ice cream.
I'm striking out against the herd.
All right.
Ice cream man.
You know what
Yeah, I mean, I would have vomited had I had a gun shoved down my face. I don't think anybody.
Well, he did bring a lot to a small role, that's for sure. Like, I mean, he's just supposed to be an ice cream guy, but he really, you had a whole world built around that guy.
Exactly.
Yeah, he had that gun.
Yeah.
What did he do with that gun?
I think if little girls came with the incorrect change for an ice cream, he just like it's an extra nickel, bitch, you know.
Well, he's selling in a rough neighborhood, you know. I guess like I can actually see why people would have that though, because you know, the ice cream truck, they're taking a lot of money from kids, and I bet that they were targeted for petty robbery type stuff. Yeah. So he's got this gun.
What, from little boys and girls, you know, with balaclavas, and you know.
Did not serve her chocolate sauce. You're dead.
Well, he was so scared though, and like I would be terrified. I'm not saying like I would be any way braver than the ice cream man.
Why was he in that neighborhood?
Exactly. If he knew they were there, he has a gun. Yeah. It should have been more of like, okay, here we go, get the gun out. You know, not a freak out.
The guy has a truck, and I'm assuming he can go where he wants. I mean, unless maybe he's working for like, you know, an ice cream truck like group or something. But if that's not his route,
what if he's like a rival gang, but they're of ice cream truck drivers.
He did look like a guy that would be in like a mafia film of the 70s, so maybe so, you know.
Yeah, I think he's the ice cream mafia. He's the head of the ice cream mafia.
He's stealing their extra chocolate sauce.
But, I mean, otherwise, roll on down to Beverly Hills, guy. Like, just go sell to the rich kids.
Well, he had all those balloons on his shirt, so maybe his gang was the Balloon Boys.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
That's great.
And they pop the balloon. I don't know. But
we need a spin-off of the Balloon Boys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ice Cream Van prequel.
Yeah. So, but in all seriousness, I would actually go with, you know, Napoleon. You know, I just think one, he's cool. You know, he's a great character. He's acted well, but he just oozes cool. Do you know what I mean? He's just so cool.
He brings out a lot of ambiguity to his character with that. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, he just comes across as like a little scary, but like a badass and just really awesome. And
acting score, Boaz, what should we go with? 7.7? 7.4?
7.8?
5? 7.7. Yeah.
7.7. Sure, why not?
Okay. Georgia and John?
10.
No, just for Darwin Johnston. But
yeah, 10.
There were some other people who are bringing down the scores.
Get averages.
We're in the same. We're right in the same area with you guys. We went with 7.5.
All right, yeah. Cool. Right, let's add up the scores then for Assault on Precinct 13. Assault on Precinct 13 gets 47.4, which is not too bad, I would say.
Not too bad.
Not too bad.
Pretty good for such a low budget film.
Yeah. That's it for part 1. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 2 to see who wins. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell us what your favourite films are relating to the episodes. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for Twitter at FVF_podcast. If you do, we'll give you a shout out on the next episode. If you're feeling really generous, you can buy us a one-off coffee at our Buy Me a Coffee account. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.
you.